The time between the late 90s and early 2000s is something I would like to call the golden age of science docs, some of which have become icons in the genre, and no other is better example than Walking with Dinosaurs. Moving with Dinosaurs was created by Tim Haynes and produced by BBC in 1999. Right off the bat it was a ratings hit, winning 2 BAFTAs and 6 Primetime Emmy Award nominations. I guess we could say Walking with Dinosaurs left footprints. It was not only a smash hit because of how it portrayed dinosaurs, but also because of the techniques utilized on the making of this documentary. It combined a mixture of CGI and 3D models, 3D animation, and also practical effects and real scenarios. I could spend hours talking about all the techniques utilized to bring this documentary to life, but a question you probably have is, did it hold up?
But first, we have to take in consideration that this is a 20-plus-year-old documentary that focus on paleontology, so naturally a lot of the information will be outdated. Paleontology tends to kinda get outdated pretty frequently. But with that out of the way, let's give it a watch, shall we? The series kicks off with its first episode, New Blood, and it serves as an introduction to the show. This show makes it feel like an actual film crew went back in time just to film these animals, but in reality, it was just New Caledonia and some animatronics. This episode takes place in the Triassic and it follows some animals from that time. As our main character for this episode, we have the Silaphysis, a small ground-dwelling dinosaur that could reach 3 meters or 9.8 feet long. At the start it focused mainly on only one individual, but by the end of the episode we can see the Silaphysis have become almost an army, capable of securing their place in the Triassic food chain. This episode also shows us a pair of cynodons, a missing link between reptiles and mammals.
As he runs, his backbone moves from side to side like a reptile's, but he has hair and lives down a burrow like a mammal.
That just had babies, but they are constantly getting bullied by our main character. What eventually leads them to eat their own young to save themselves. Unnecessarily cruel. You are a bold one, Tim, I give you that. This is actually not a very weird behavior in nature. Some animals like rabbits, some rodents, among other animals, tend to eat their young as a way to recycle energy in case of an emergency. For example, they saw that their burrow was endangered and constantly getting attacked, so they were faced with 2 options. Either they stay and die, or they run to another burrow. However, they can't take all of their young with them. For an animal in this situation, eating their young, recycling that energy to move to another burrow, make another burrow, and then have another litter is the best solution. And that's what a lot of animals do. It is cruel, but you know, in nature is a matter of survival more than anything. I kinda like that they show this in the show. But one of the highlights of this first episode is, to me, without a doubt, the female Postosuchus arc. That can only be described as a Hollywood-level fall from grace. She starts as this badass predator that strikes fear in everything, but across the episode, she f***s it up completely. So she starts as this badass predator, then goes to hunt some yummy Placerias, but the Placerias hunt back, and now she's bleeding. Oh no! She loses her territory to a rival Postosuchus that proceeds to take a piss in her lawn, and then due to her injuries, she dies and gets eaten by the same animals she used to be a meanie to. Tragic. Sad horse crocodile galloping towards extinction. I would be crying if I could stop staring at the goofiness of this animatronic. It is a first great episode for the show. It also has outdated information. And the most noticeable thing that I noticed was the Postosuchus is described in the show as a quadruped, but today we know that it was more likely to be a biped animal. Besides that, it's a pretty decent episode, and let's keep watching. This second episode is titled Time of Titans, and it takes place on the Morrison Formation of Lights Jurassic North America. Main character for this episode, this baby female Diplodocus and the rest of her clutch. The episode follows this group of baby Diplodocus from the moment they hatch to when they're adults. Along the way, they face many dangers, such as being hunted by Allosaurus, getting caught in a fight between an Allosaurus and a Stegosaurus, and eventually reaching adulthood. This episode is a bit more streamlined than the first one, doesn't have branching arcs and different characters to follow along. It focuses mainly just on the Diplodocus, but it still counts with some great cameos from a giantess Brachiosaurus, the Allosaur brothers, and the Stegosaurus with no trigger discipline whatsoever. And the Ornitholesus, a handsome boy. I wanted to talk about this before, but I think this episode is the best time to talk about it, and it is the amazing score by Benjamin Bart. Across the entire show, it does not disappoint, but in this specific episode, it is great. It paints these long gone animals as majestic creatures, almost surreal. Dragons, for example, some mythical creature, but it's a real animal, and that's really cool. Just listen to it. Iconic. Bravo. Chef's kiss. Another great episode. I didn't notice much outdated information, just little things. A pretty good episode. Let's go to the third one, and we are halfway there already. Cruel Sea is probably my favorite episode of the bunch, but it focuses on non-dinosaurs, more precisely aquatic non-dinosaurs. Clickbait much, huh, Tim? This episode follows the Ophthalmosaurus as they go about their lives, from giving birth to dying while giving birth, and eating some squids along the way for good measure. But speaking of measures, I have to talk about the elephant in the room, or more like the 5 elephants long Liopleurodon in the room. This is the most baffling outdated information in the show, probably. The Liopleurodon in this episode is described as having 25 meters long, but in reality it is believed to have around 4 to 7 meters long. This is a huge oversize. A fun fact, this piece of outdated information is also present in this old dinosaur book I had as a kid. He's a real bully to the rest of the animals in the ocean. And you wanna know what happened to him? He gets beached and gets eaten by the same animals he used to be a bully towards. I guess all that size came with consequences. This episode, as I said, focuses mainly on aquatic creatures, but it also has some cameos from the Cryptocalydes, land-dwelling and air-dwelling dinosaurs. It is really cool and my favorite one because you know me, I do be liking my aquatic boys. My sea puppies, if you will. Next comes Giant of the Skies, and this one is arguably the saddest episode so far. The episode starts by showing us a dead male Ornithocheirus and tells us that this dead Ornithocheirus is our main character. Okay, then it cuts to a few days earlier when we are introduced to our main character as the King of the Skies with a wingspan of 12 meters. He is big, strong, and horny as starting his journey across the Atlantic Ocean, where he expects to claim some bitches at the mating grounds. However, the narrator constantly tells us that this is his last flight. Ooh, pretty ominous. What's gonna happen to him? How does he die? You will see. It's a trip. He crosses paths with some iguanodons, some eutharaptors, as well as some tapajera. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Tapajara.
I have to talk about something in this segment. There is no fossil evidence that there were eutharaptors. I mean, now that I'm saying it, maybe tomorrow they will find something. But as the time of recording this video, there is no evidence of eutharaptors in Europe. However, I guess it's a fair assumption, given that during the Mesozoic there were a lot of land connections between North America and Europe. But there is no information in the fossil record that says eutharaptors lived in Europe as well. So do with that what you will. In his adventure, our hero gets all f***ed up, having to hide from the rain, getting parasites, but eventually arriving at the club, only to get outmatched by a much younger and stronger Ornithocheirus, and having to perform from the edge of the breeding grounds, where he ends up dying from heat stroke, exhaustion, and blue balls. This is the saddest ending so far. Legitimately depressing. We were constantly reminded that he was going to die, but I didn't expect this level of cruelty from you, Tim. They said the devil would be handsome. Let's keep going, let's leave it there. I'm gonna cry myself to sleep due to this one. Next we have another favorite of mine, Spirits of the Ice Forest. A very curious episode since it focuses on animals that are barely known outside of the paleontology sphere and otherwise would go unknown to many people. Good job, Tim. Good job. The main character for this episode now is the Lilenosaur, a cute little herbivore adapted to a cold environment, and it follows them as they emerge in spring and get ready for the next winter. With this, they build nests, they eat as much as they can, going from sick to thick, and that's pretty much it. A highlight of this episode is how they explain a lot of the adaptations some of these animals and even plants have to utilize to survive in this harsh environment. Outside of the Lilenosaur arc, this episode doesn't show much, I guess. It has some cameos from a favorite of mine, the Kulasukas, the big salamander Jones himself. I love this man. A southern cousin of the Iguanodon, I guess you can call it that, Mutabrosaurus, and a polar allosaur. Tim, what the f is a polar allosaurus? I made a little digging, and the polar allosaurus is a misidentified dinosaur at the time. I'm not sure exactly what dinosaur it was supposed to be, but yeah, that's it. It's a misidentified dinosaur that they took as being a polar allosaurus. Another outdated information is the Lilenosaur itself. It tells us that it is an animal specialized at surviving in a cold environment, and yet it is naked. Nowadays, it is pretty common knowledge that a lot of dinosaurs are covered in feathers, or proto-feathers, or any other kind of plumage. the Lilenosaur would likely be covered in feathers as he was a cold-dwelling animal, so he would need the extra layer of protection naturally. So I don't know why they went with the bald design. His tail is also a little bit on the short side. He feels a little unbalanced. They also say the Lilenosaur hibernate, but there is no evidence of Lilenosaurs hibernating. It is actually believed that they didn't. Besides that, it's a pretty cool episode with very unique creatures. And that's about it. One episode to go. Let's go to the final episode. And what do we have at the end of a show about dinosaurs? The death of a dynasty with a extinction scene. Of course you had to have an extinction scene. How could they not? I see you there, Tim, making us affectionate towards these cute little boys and then swipe them away as if they were nothing. Cruel. Almost terrifying. This extinction scene always stood out to me, because you would expect shots of the meteor coming from space, hitting the planet, a bunch of fire and smoke going across the entire planet, dinosaurs dying left and right, but that's not what we get here. What we get here is the extinction from a dinosaur point of view. The scene is ominous, with these walls of smoke coming from the horizon, dinosaurs and other animals running left and right to safety. It is a pretty scary scene, and yet very silent. It is really cool to watch. Although this scene got a lot of criticism for this, I believe because people were expecting something more epic and something more dramatic, I believe this was the point, to show us the extinction from a dinosaur point of view. And I can respect that. It is really cool. The more I watch it, the more I think this is my favorite extinction scene in media. It is really creative and, in a way, very realistic from a, dinosaur point of view. It has some outdated information as well. It is not perfect. The show tells us that the volcanism at the time was already killing off the dinosaurs.
Massive eruptions that have lasted for centuries have laid waste to landscapes and filled the atmosphere with poisonous gases and debris. Life on Earth is choking to death.
But there is no fossil evidence of this. Maybe the volcanism was really high where the meteor hit around Mexico and Central America. But the fossil record tells us that outside of that place, even North America, Europe, Asia, dinosaurs were just vibing. No volcanism whatsoever. Maybe some here and there like today, but nothing out of the ordinary. Another thing that stood out to me is the design used for the Tyrannosaurus. Look how they massacred my boy. The head has a weird shape, the tail is too small, the legs look weird. I don't know what happened there, Tim. It looks weird. I would say it looks bad. Even though this episode is sad because we see the animals we grew to love die, it ends up on a positive and somehow hopeful note that goes something along the lines that even though dinosaurs are gone, we still have reptiles and birds, which are extinct dinosaurs. So in a way, we are still walking among dinosaurs. And I would like to add something. We look back at these animals as they being incredible, almost surreal, epic creatures. But maybe in a few million years from now, the next big civilization will look at us and the world we are living in today as amazing creatures and epic creatures that can only be described as the swaggiest of drips in the animal kingdom. Now to answer the question, did it hold up to today's standards? I would say, in terms of entertainment, is a 10 out of 10. It's a blast to watch. In terms of information and education, I'll have to give it maybe a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. A lot of the information is outdated. A lot of the dinosaurs depicted are depicted with outdated information. A lot of the environments are depicted with outdated information. Still, it has enough up-to-date information that makes it be worthwhile to watch, even if you want to learn something. Maybe I'm looking at it from a nostalgic standpoint. I watched this show for the first time in, I don't know, probably 2004. This episode first aired in 1999, but at that time I was too busy being a seaman, you know? I already had my plate full. So when it re-aired, I watched it, I didn't even know how to read, and I was instantly in love with paleontology and biology as a whole. In some ways, it made me be here today talking about it. If you're curious and you want to watch it, it is streaming in a few places, depending on where you live. I highly encourage you to give it a watch if you like, paleontology. I bet you do, I mean, you're watching this video. This show got so big and so famous that it spawned a whole cinematic universe called the Walking With Cinematic Universe, as well as some other documentaries heavily inspired by Walking with Dinosaurs. Looks like the video is coming to an end. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry it took this long to finish this video, but I was not happy with the results. I was constantly thinking, no, I'm gonna record this again, I'm gonna record that again. It eventually got out of control. This is the 6th time I am recording this video. This video has been a month in the making, bruh. Thank you to all of the people that left positive comments on my last video. It meant the world to me. If you like what you saw, stay tuned. More videos like this one are on the way. So, once again, thanks for all the positive feedback. See you next time.